Welcome back everybody to Tony's Top Tips Workshop. This video is really to follow on from the last video I did, where you could use utilise the 4040 as an overhead router. Well, what I'm going to show you today is that you can use it in another way as well, still as an overhead router, but this time it's going to make tenons. Okay, absolutely perfect tenons, no breaking out, exact size that you want, clean shoulders, all square. Okay, it's one of them things where a lot of people can probably easier to cut the mortise out than it is the tenon. So once I've shown you how to do the tenon, then I will do another program to show you how to do the mortise. Obviously you're restricted to the depth of the tenon, or the length of the tenon, and also the actual width because of the table. But if you do it in the orientation that I've done, then you can use longer pieces providing you support them. It is a slow process, but as you can see, it does a perfect tenon. You won't cut one like that with a saw and a chisel. and I'm good at it, and I can't cut one that. It's very good. But I will show you the tenon process. There's two ways. You can do it manually, or you can use Vectrix or a software program where you just create a toolpath, and the toolpath is just a simple straight toolpath with the cutter that I'm using, and then you zero it off, set it up, find out where it's cutting, the cutting point is, and then just this. Now you will be using obviously the fence system that I showed you in the last video, so that is crucial really. And the only other thing I've used is a 3D printed stop, but you could utilize a piece of timber for that and just screw it to the bed. But this is just to show you how it's performed. Okay, so we'll go over to the machine and I'll show you the setup. Right, I hope you can all see this. Use the I've got the fence system I had on last time. Okay, and what I've done is I've actually screwed a piece of timber to the face, goes right across with a cutout. As you can see, it's an 18mm plunge cutter, and you can use any, preferably you want a wider cutter really, because it'll give you a better cut, and plus the fact is you've not got the RPMs up, so it's not as noisy as well. And what you do is, this is how the tenon's done. You've got a stop there, so your cutter's actually set. This won't move. All you have to do is you put your hand on there. This is to stop your shoulder joint, which is that one. Can you see? It shouldn't break out, and as you can see on that, there's no breakout whatsoever on either. So you pop that in. Now the stop is set to the depth of the tenon that you want. That's from the face. This is your cutting face, so it's cutting this way, so it's going to take the timber towards the fence, not away. You don't want to cut on that side, you want it to cut on this side. Okay, it's not a fast process, but it does a perfect job. And I'm taking in small amounts off, because obviously the motor, but if you've got a router, decent router, you can take a bit more, so you can probably do it in a lot quicker time. But that's up to yourselves with whatever equipment you've got. So once I've set the zeroed off to the top of the timber, okay, you've done that, then you move your machine around until you've got where your cutting face is over the centre of that. I've taken this out, it's just slightly wider than the cutter and below what the tenon length is. Okay, but this shoulder here is critical. I'll just get a pencil and show you. That face there is critical. That must leave a little bit on for that to trim off, because that gives you a clean cutting edge. Okay, it stops breakout. Okay, and once you know, when you set the program running, where that goes in, and remember, if this is a 60mm piece of timber and you want to tenon it right across, then you would have to do a cut that would go past, because obviously you don't want to curve up, it has to go past that, so it has to go out of the cutting area. Okay, so I've got my timber set at 100mm wide, so that allows for a sweep out and obviously a sweep that way, so that you get a clean straight cut, you're not getting a curve on it. Okay, I hope you all understand that. That's set slightly over this way, and the centre is, I'll show you in the program in a minute, that's all zeroed off where the cutter is now. Okay, so if you can see where that face is, it's over here, so that stops it leaving around over here. Okay, hope you all understand that. And what you do is, once you set, you put a little bit past, I'll show you on the other side, you'd put, because you know where your cut comes through, you'd take a little bit off. Okay, so you do that pass however many times it goes past, plunging in and coming back. Then you, once it's finished that program, you do it again, set the program running again, set it again, and up to the stop. That gives you your full depth of your tenon. The other thing that you've got to remember is that when you set this fence up, this fence here must be perfectly square to this x-axis. If it's not, you'll get an offset shoulder on a tenon. It will go square out one way, so that there'll be uneven your tenon, and you don't want that. That is perfectly square across there. If it's out of square, you'll get one up and then this one down. Okay, so you'll tell whether it's out of square. And basically that's it. I'll take you over to computer and show you just a simple program that I've run, and then I'll bring you back here and I'll show you how we're cutting the tenon. Right, here we are at Vectrix Aspire, and as you can see there, this represents your timber, and this represents what I'm cutting. Okay, so all I've done, there's other ways you can do it, but what I've done is I've set my material size up, and the material is, I'll show you in here, material size is 100 by 65. I mean, the 65 is the height, which doesn't really make any difference to it as such, as long as you've got some sort of height there and it's more than what you're taking off, that's all. But the 100 is, the rail is 60 and the 100 is so that it can pass either way. Okay, when you set it up. Alright, it's just the way I've done it. There'll be other ways, I'm sure there will. Okay, and then what I've done is I went into those oblong, which is there, or square tool, whichever, and I drew it, and it's 80 by 18, which is 18mm is the width of my cutter, and 80 is the length that I'm having to go past either way, so that it gives you a bit of a return pass, so you get a straight shoulder. Okay, I'll show you the tool path. Okay, now this is preview all visible tool path, and basically that's what it's doing. Okay, so you've got a clean shoulder here either side, because I'm going past at 80mm when the rail's only 60. Okay, and it's just a simple one, and I'll show you the right, this is the for the cutter. Okay, it's 18 millimeters. That's the diameter of the cutter. I've just set it as a end mill. Pass depth is 0.75. If it had a bigger router, I could take more off. So, and I know that the shoulders are about 5 mil deep, so 0.75, you're going to be going over a few passes, aren't you? It's, you know, if it had been 1 mil, it'd been 5 passes, but it isn't. So but I'm working to the limitations. Okay, step over, because it's a big cutter, there's no step over needed, but you have to put something in for the step over. Okay, and it's 0.1. I can change that to 0.01, but I've just left it at 0.1. These don't really matter, because you set the speed and the feed rate on the offline controller. Okay, so that's that. So I'll close that down. So that's my tenon will be somewhere roughly in this here. The curved part is only the result of the cutter on the other side. I'm working down here from this side, this sweep. Okay, you'll see in a minute, they all come apparent. So I'll take you over to the but that's it, just one toolpath, that's it, and that's all I've saved it as. And I'll take you over to the machine now, and I'll show you how it machines. Here we're at the offline controller. The cutter's set where I want it, and sometimes it'll just take a little bit of setting up in order to get to know where your cutter and where your tenon and where your shoulders are going to be. But once you've got that and you know where it's going, zero your X and Y axis off. Your Y axis will not move, but I always zero them off anyway. I've done a touch off on top of the material with the probe, as you can see. Okay, and because I'm on a board, baseboard, and the material's 23 mil thick, then I've actually I'll just take it down. I've actually lifted the Z-axis frame up to so that it's up at its highest point. Okay, that's just a necessity, because when you come to cut, what'll happen is that'll go up and it'll trip out. So you do it on that. It still gives you depth of cut that you want, and of course when it goes up it won't trip the and you have to reset it. So okay, right, here we are back at the machine. Okay, so that's the tenon I've done. Okay, so I want to do tenon on this side. Okay, so I pop that in there. That's a stop. That'd give me full tenon. Okay, but I'm not. I know where the shoulder cuts through, so I'm just gonna have a little bit protruding, and then we go onto the open the file, and then you get ready to actually operate the machine. Switch the spindle on. It doesn't need a lot of RPM. It's a bigger cutter. It's an 80mm cutter, especially on this machine. It'll, if it's out of balance, it's a cheap cutter, it will give you quite a lot of vibration. Show you there. I put the file in, which is that one there. Tenon pass. Okay, everything's been zeroed out, so I just go down to there and set the machine running. When it's done this pass, then what you do is you select that again, get it to run the program again, and then you just run the program again until it's finished its cut when you're up against the tenon stop. Okay, right, I put the program in, we're ready to run. That's down. Let's see what happens. As you can see, I've taken about 4mm off, and it's plunging down to the depth that I want. And the step over that it has will clean, which is 0.1 of a millimetre. It will bring it back towards me, that 0.1, and it gives you a lovely clean edge as a back cut. Oh, that's done that. Back to 0. Okay, move it on a bit more. Put the program in again. Run again. And it's as simple as that. Run it again. It's up to yourself on how you feel the cut's performing. This is on 2000 millimeters a minute is this, that's feed rate, which is quite adequate. But it depends on what amount you're taking off. And depends on what motor you've got in, what spindle. Little is always better than too much. Now I've done this on purpose. I've probably doubled the amount that I normally take off, and you can hear the difference in the cut, or at least I can. So I know that that's a little bit too much. I've done that to show you. Okay. So that's cut that tenon. Lovely square job, no breakout, nice and square. That is, you won't get any tenon better than that. Okay, so what we do then is put that back in and then run the program for the other side. This cutter's running approximately 8,000 RPM. When you actually cut tenons like this, because you're not working from a face all the time, because you're flipping it over, you must make sure that your timber that you are using is exactly the same thickness, because if it's not, or it tapers off, your tenon will end up different thickness. Okay, so it must be, you must plane it to exactly the same thickness. You can do offset tenons, you can do step tenons in this way. Don't make any odds, you can still do it. It's quicker than cutting them by hand and using a chisel to finalise them, but it's slower than using a purpose-made tenoner. On its final last trim. I always do a very fine cut on the last shoulder. This eliminates any breakout. There we are. Job finished. Lovely tenon, and it'd be better than you can cut by hand. Yeah, and just to show you it is done, there's the other one. Identical. Okay, sorry, it may be that your timber's too wide, so you won't get the mortises cut, so hence you would actually cut them by hand, the mortises. But at least you can cut the tenons on here, because you could cut quite wide tenons, but obviously you won't get the rails, you're limited to height. But you can do up to a certain height, and I'll show you how you can do up to a certain height, and we'll show you that in the next video. So I hope that makes it clear. You can, the other thing as well is, you can actually, you don't have to use a program to do it, because with the offline controller or the MPG, you can actually set for your first cut like I did, set your machine up, make sure it's cut out, that's there, move it your y-axis till it's up to where you've cut through, so it's nice and clean, just leave a little bit to trim off. And then what you would do is you would go over to your offline controller, okay, you would, once you've got your cutter up, set up to where you want, you would zero the X and Y off, alright, and you go back down to there, go back on the previous page, set your feed rate to a reasonable feed rate. That's at 2000. Try it at 1000 at first, see how we go with it, and then increase it step by step, okay. And then all I would do is go to the X-axis, okay. Now that would, you would press that, because it's on 1mm step by step at the moment, you put it on continuous, which is that. Go to your X. When you press X plus and hold the button in, the machine will run across where the tenons cut at the moment, okay. So you can do that, but of course you've got your Z-axis to set. Right, what I'm going to do is show you how to do this manually now, okay. So you've set your machine up so that the cutter is going to overlap, and you set your cutter, okay, so that it's scraping the top out of the way, but scraping just the top of the timber. You can bring it over, in fact I'll show you that. Bring it over in the MPG, switch it to Z, right, that's just scraping the top of that, okay. So what I will do then, move the X-axis, because you've got the cut out, move the X-axis out of the way, okay, so you cut it completely out of the way, okay. So we know that that is, go to your Z-axis on there and zero it, okay. So we know that that's 0, and what we're going to take off then is 1mm, okay. So then what you would do is your MPG or your offline control, you can do the same, is set your Z-axis and then move it down 1mm. If you watch those figures there, right, we're on 1mm, okay. So what you would do then is set your spindle running, put your X-axis to plus, once you set your X-axis, then just gently move that across, okay. That will machine that back across. This is doing it manually without a program. Back out of the way, back onto your Z-axis, watch the figures, that's going down another millimetre, so your depth is 2mm. So you know if you want to go down 5mm shoulders, that's what you're going down, okay. So that's with the MPG. But if you're using the offline controller, what you would do is just the same, go back up here, set your feed rate to 1mm each time, okay. Go to your Z-axis minus, and you would press it once. That sent your Z-axis down 1mm. Go back up to your X plus, that's when you're going to move next, but you need to be back on continuous. Okay, back to plus, and I'm trying to get both of you in shot really there. Once you've got your machine running, then press and hold your button, and that will traverse across your tenon at the feed rate that you've set. Wait till you've passed. Okay, flick it to minus, come back across. Okay, this is set on 2000 millimeters a minute at the moment. Wait till you're clear, move in a bit more, what you want to take off, go back down to your z-axis minus, but don't forget that must be on 1 millimeter, because that's what you're taking it down the increments at, or whatever the amount you've set. Okay, press it once, that moves it down to the millimeter. Back up to your amount, continuous again, back to your plus on X, press and hold. Okay, and that's taking another millimeter off. And then back to minus and back across. So you have the choice to do it with offline controller, MPG, or indeed with a program. Okay, so pretty simple really, and they both do the same job. Offline controller, MPG in manual mode. I hope that I've explained that reasonably well. It's a bit difficult getting everything in the shot. Must get a wide angle lens for this camera. Well, that's the conclusion to this video. I hope I've explained that this is just another feature of using it as a overhead router. And the beauty about the Tenons is you could use a sled where you fasten your material to it and pass it in front of the cutter, but you're limited to the length of your material then. This way you're not limited to what length you put in those tenons on, because it'll just come out the back of the machine. Okay, you can do it, as I explained, manual with the MPG, watching the screen on the offline controller, or you can use the offline controller and just press the button in and do it continuous. Both do the same way, or you can use a software program like I did, which is the easiest way, because all you do is run the program again, press it once and leave it. Okay, I hope everybody liked the last video showing the use of the 4040 as a overhead router, and what I've done here I can do exactly the same on any of the CNCs that I have. I have a fence system for the large router, so I can use bigger materials, and I have a fence system for the smaller 3030 over there. So the work just the same, you're just limited to what you can do. Okay, as I say, it's just a video to show you another feature of utilizing what this machine has, and I'll defy anybody to say that they can get better tenons on other machines than that. They are accurate. I've cut thousands of tenons in my time, and that is a good tenon, as good as you'll get it, and it's accurate. I've checked them with a vernier, both tenons are the same. That's because the material that you're using is exactly the same. If it's not exactly the same on each rail, there's half a mil difference in it, then you'll get half a mil difference in the tenon. Okay, so just remember that you must be accurate with the material that you're working with. Right, that's the conclusion of this video. In the comment section below, if you have any questions, please ask away. I'll try and answer it the best I can. I've had a few from the yesterday's video on the overhead router, and I've answered those. On social media as well, I've answered them. But give me a thumbs up if you like the video, because it does help me. and I am going to do one on the jig and pin, so that will be coming up. I don't know when, but I will. And I'm also going to show you how to cut a mortise. You're restricted on the height because the height of the x-axis gantry, but that's one of the downfalls with it. If it had some extension blocks underneath, you could lift it up to what you wanted, then it'd be brilliant. But unfortunately, we don't have that, so you're limited to what mortises you can cut on it. But I'm going to show you that, and as I say, the jig and pin. So as I always say at the end of the next, like and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and as I always say at the end of the video, you be safe, you be careful, and bye for now.